Welcome back to No Sleep Teal right here on Reier on YouTube. Travis Reier back alongside co-host Evan Reier. Evan, a big day on this Tuesday as the Jacksonville Jaguars submit their initial, key to sort of point that out, initial 53-man roster. The Jags get down to the number. We'll go across the team, Evan, get your thoughts. We'll talk about maybe some surprises. I think once you start connecting some dots between special teams and some other positions, things make more sense. But let's start right there on the offensive side of the ball, and we look at the quarterback position. Two quarterbacks on this roster, Trevor Lawrence, of course, and then Mac Jones, who had a strong preseason in his own right. No C.J. Beathard. He was released injured, had that groin injury late in camp. Two quarterbacks, Evan. Is this a practice squad situation, you think, perhaps for a third? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be at least one guy that they go get, to ride that practice squad. If I had to, throw a guess out there, I mean, they keep signing EJ Perry, releasing him and signing him. So wouldn't be surprised if that's actually the guy who's on the practice squad. But yeah, for sure. They might even, there's a world in which you might see two guys initially. Sometimes teams will do that. So they try to figure out that third spot because, I believe last year was the first year of the, emergency third quarterback thing. So no, they'll definitely be looking around for somebody. I'm going to miss CJ though. I know you will too. We were big CJ guys and hopefully, he can recover from that groin injury fast enough and find himself a new spot.
Yeah, it's a situation where you're wondering about father time at this point with
Yeah,
CJ. He's broken down a little bit these last couple of years, obviously last season, and then again, isn't able to make it through camp without a soft tissue injury with the groin. So, absolutely, a guy that I still think in a stretch throughout a game or a couple of games maybe can have value to a team. And that experience in your room, especially if you're young at the quarterback position in some places around the National Football League like it is right now, there's value still with CJ Beathard. Hey, let's talk running backs. The Jags keep three. No surprise there, I guess. Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, Dearness Johnson. Those are the three backs. Now, Keelan Robinson, the rookie out of Texas, we really didn't see in camp because of a toe injury. He is designated IR with the ability to return after 4 weeks. But four backs, Jalen Jackson released, waived, and then also Gary Brightwell, who was brought in a little bit later in camp. So those are your three guys. Robinson on IR. I guess that looks about right.
yeah, no, I think that's a perfect way to set this up. I mean, don't get twisted. Some of those other guys, had little, I would say moments like you've talked about how you were impressed by Jalen Jackson in camp. But I think, you kind of have to, ETN and Bixby are obvious. Johnson was the only one that, who knows, maybe something could happen there because he's, a cheap veteran. But no, I mean, again, like you said, with the quarterback position, having experience there is not a bad thing when you have two pretty young running backs. And then Keelan Robinson on the IR is actually, it stinks that we haven't been able to get to see him really, but this at least gives him a chance to recover and who knows, potentially offer something in the back half of the season, which could be useful.
Yeah, as a return guy as well, although the Jags right now look in pretty good shape as far as return
For
options,
sure.
including Tank Bigsby in that mix. But you never know because of injuries and the potential for those things. Perhaps when Robinson is eligible to return, this situation could look different. Your return game could look different. I did like Jalen Jackson in the first half of camp. Seemed like the second half of camp, he wasn't as much of a factor. And unless you were really a significant other kind of guy at the position and or a special team star, it was going to be tough to probably keep more than three running backs on this initial 53-man roster. Wide receiver position, Evan. Jags initially a year ago kept seven wide receivers. That was good news for Elijah Cooks. A year later, not so good for Elijah Cooks because the Jags keep six on Tuesday. Obviously, Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., the rookie, Parker Washington, Devin Duvernay, and then the special teams guy that we talk about, Tim Jones, hangs on as the sixth guy. 6, 7, that seemed to be the debate there. Would the Jags keep a 7th? They keep 6.
No, I think this is about exactly what I expected. I see a lot of people, commenting on the fact that, Tim Jones is making it, but I mentioned, I think over, the past few months when we talked about it, I was like, they clearly like Tim Jones a lot. He offers a solid amount, a very reliable production rate as a special teams player. And, if they need to put him out there, he's not, he's made some catches over the past year or so. So no, not too surprised there. I could see a world in which you could get away with 7, but I don't know. This is a very solid wide receiver group. I don't think that, spending more resources than you already have on it really makes sense. I like the 6 that they have.
Yeah, practice squad possibilities too here.
Yeah, for
Austin
sure.
Trammell really had a nice
Cephas.
finish to camp, and Joshua Cephas was kind of a guy early that drew a lot of intrigue. It just never really happened for him in camp. And then I think Cooks the same thing, because I think Cooks can give you something on special teams. Is he sort of the stalwart or the staple on special teams that Tim Jones is? No, but I like his size. And just as a wide receiver, though, there are going to be other guys on the market now with the waiver wire and the things that the Jags will certainly be looking into at this position and elsewhere. But I'm with you. I think the 6 they kept made sense at the end of the day, and more so with an emphasis on Tim Jones where special teams are concerned. Tight ends, the Jags keep 3. It's another area. Would it be 3? Would it be 4? You thought maybe Josiah DeGuara. He had a nice camp, as sort of that 4th tight end, but ultimately, when you got Evan Ingram, when you got Luke Farrell, and then you got Brenton Strange, you're pretty much set there going into the season.
No, yeah. I think again, kind of similar thing with the wide receiver group where you've got a very talented kind of, first, you're kind of your starting situation there. Evan Ingram specifically with tight ends. You're set there. Luke Farrell has continued to be reliable as a very, solid blocking tight end. And then Brenton Strange is kind of your I don't know how you want to call it. I was going to say X factor, but I don't know what that factor is quite yet. Um, a guy that you're still developing, a guy that, ideally can blossom into a guy that can do both maybe, but we'll see. So no, I think that's the 3 I expected. Degura is definitely, I could see him ending up somewhere, but honestly, I think, his best case would actually remaining with the Jaguars on the practice squad, occasionally getting a call up, especially, one injury or so happens and, you're going to want that next guy up. So if they liked what they saw, then maybe they keep him around on the PS.
We think about the offensive line position too. The Jags keep 10 offensive linemen. I think there's a case to be made for maybe 9 in some years.
Yeah.
But it is pretty much a 2 deep that the Jags did keep. Couple of initial thoughts. If you're going to keep Luke Fortner as a true center reserve, you're probably going to have to keep 10, right?
Yeah.
Because he's not a guy that's going to swing between guard and center. So that may have made things better for a Cooper Hodges or a Cole Van Lannon to make this roster. And also, you get the sense the Jags, you invest a draft pick in Javon Foster, a mid-round pick in 2024. He's not ready right now, but you see a developmental type player that you want to keep and protect from other teams. Walker Little is your top tackle. Cole Van Lannon, though, made a pretty good case for himself at that position. And then Fortner and Foster, and you got a 5 there to go with your starting 5.
Yeah, no, I think this is kind of the group I would expect. Cole Van Lannon, I mean, he's kind of been the talk of the town this past week or two. Been playing really, really well in the preseason. So it's exciting to see him kind of take his step up and claim his spot, really lock that in. I think he kind of did that with an exclamation point. Other than that, like you said, Fortner's not swinging around, but I get why they're sticking with him. Why that you still go with it. I mean, he was getting some practice this preseason at guard, so maybe they think if worse comes to worse, if they don't need to use Cooper Hodges, you can go with that. I was a little worried that I thought there might be a world in which Javon Foster gets cut, but I'm glad they figured out a way to get him on the roster as well, just because I do think he's showing some promise. I was just getting, between, especially when Van Lanen was getting in the mix, I was just like, I don't know, this could be a tough swing, but I like the group.
Yeah, I think it's nice that you were able to keep essentially three tackles. And yeah, with Javon Foster, if you waive him, there's a very good chance you're not going to get him back on your
Right.
practice squad. So,
Yeah.
again, you don't get the sense that he's really all that close to being the third tackle or even maybe the fourth tackle. Hence, you keep Van Lanen and Walker Little. Um, Tyler Shatley, longest tenured Jaguar, doesn't make this 53-man roster. Been with the team since 2014. I get the sense, though, that they would love for him to kind of stay close if he's not a practice squad kind of guy. And then at some point, if you have some injuries, this is a guy with familiarity with your system and how you operate, can play guard, can play center. But Cooper Hodges, a young player they obviously like too, and that interior offensive line. So these names, when you consider what their needs are from a depth perspective and also where they're at with developing a couple of these young guys, the 10 total, again, is sensible to say the least. Defensive ends on this 53-man roster, Evan, as we flip it over to the defensive side, Josh Hines-Allen, obviously, Trayvon Walker, obviously, Eric Armstead as a defensive end. I think he's a base defensive end. I think people hear this and they, oh, wow, they're going to have him out on the edge on 3rd and 8. No, Eric Armstead's going to be inside in pass rush situations. And Miles Cole here, the rookie, as a late round pick on the 53-man roster.
Yeah, that's probably maybe, one of the surprises of the roster is Miles Cole. Maybe not a surprise to people who have been paying attention super recently or been kind of on his hype train, but definitely a bit an addition late. Overall, I also would say that rolling with as many interior DL, 8 is probably the absolute max I thought was possible. I mean, some of those guys are flex players, they can kind of move in and out, but it's definitely quite a few dudes. But when guys like Mason Smith have been exciting, Jordan Jefferson, none of these new rookies have given the Jags any reason to really have concern. They've at least shown some promise early, and then guys like Ledbetter and Tyler Lacey, those are your kind of those dudes that well at this point. They can do a job as a rotational player. No, I think the DL is definitely an interesting group right now. I don't know. I would love to go get another out and out proper edge.
Yeah.
But overall, like the group.
Yeah, the Trevis Gipson trade to Seattle was probably good news for Miles Cole.
Yeah.
Because if Trevis Gipson doesn't go to Seattle, I think an assumption could be made that Miles Cole isn't on this 53.
Yeah.
And again, we also reiterate, this is the initial 53-man roster. We'll see what happens in the coming days, but it works out for Miles Cole now. Wanted your thoughts real quick on the Trevis Gipson situation, because he certainly had the look of, if we're talking about just true edge guys, and I know Eric Armstead is listed as an end, but we're talking about edge. Gipson looked like that third guy. So do you have some concerns now where that is concerned, or do you think that maybe even at the linebacker position, there's some guys like Devin Lloyd, like Chad Muma, like Abdullah, they can use maybe in a little bit of a hybrid role?
Yeah, I'm thinking, there's that aspect for sure. Because we've been seeing that throughout the preseason. We've been seeing the coaching staff. Ryan Nielsen has talked about doing this kind of thing a lot. So maybe there's that. I also, I could see a situation where the Jags are saying, okay, look, we just signed this guy for, in free agency. We didn't really guarantee him any money that would make a trade not worth it. The team's coming to us with, a 6th round pick. Like it's just smart business. to flip that. You know what I mean? To just get resources for essentially extremely little investment, and then maybe they reinvest those resources, in another trade or something. I mean, I could see the Jags doing that. Maybe not going to get a huge name or something, but an Arden Key level kind of guy. Using maybe a couple day 3 or day 2 picks or whatever. But also, before they even consider that, I mean, they're just going to see who gets released. There's going to be some veteran players out there that are, pretty solid, proven edge rushers that would be perfect for that role. So, if I want to believe that it's going to be good business. I want to believe that we've got the bulky masterclass, kind of happening as we see it. But, at the same time, I was enjoying Gipson, what I was seeing. So it's a little disappointing, but I think it's fine. It's the kind of the kind of decision that you want your GM making, but at the same time, we better not have issues with rotational edge play,
Yeah.
throughout the season. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I know people see that 6th-round pick and they think, well, what kind of player are you going to get with a 6? Well, I'm not going to go down the Tom Brady road and all that stuff
Sure.
with you, because there's more potential with that pick, because you might be able to package it with another pick, right? And
Yeah.
get to where you want to go. It's not always just pick for player. Sometimes you got to consider the bundling of picks, players,
Absolutely.
and picks. There's a lot of different ways you can get business done in the National Football League. You talked about the inside guys a little bit, Devon Hamilton, Roy Robertson Harris. I still think of Armstead in some ways as more of an inside player than a true outside player. Again, on early downs base, okay, I can see him as an end. But with Hamilton, Roy Robertson Harris, Mason Smith, who really came on as preseason camp wore along, Jordan Jefferson, you knew was going to make this 53-man as a rookie interior player. Tyler Lacey, kind of the same thing, just in his second season, a guy that they really liked coming out of Oklahoma State a year ago. Jeremiah Ledbetter's a guy that we saw work with the 1s and 2s throughout camp, so I wasn't necessarily surprised there. I wondered about Sezi Otamiwo,
Yeah.
because we saw some things with him early in camp that seemed to dissipate a little bit later in camp. But the bottom line is, when you talk about interior type of pass rushers, Otamiwo, I think, has that potential, and I think that's probably what helped him in the end here with the 53-man. You get into the linebackers, Foy Oluokun, Devin Lloyd, Chad Muma, Abdullah, Ventrell Miller, Caleb Johnson. Again, about what you would expect, I think there, Evan. Caleb Johnson, kind of like the Tim Jones of the defense.
Yeah.
Special teams, a big part of keeping him around for now.
No, for sure. But it's I like the group. I think, the name that I was a little worried about here too, he has looked good, but still injury issues are a problem. But I was a little worried about Ventrell Miller. I'm not going to lie. I thought there was a world in which he might get cut, but I think the Jags really do want to give him a fair shake. And hopefully this year he can stay healthy and actually get that. So I'm happy to see him in the mix. And then, no surprises with Johnson or Abdullah. Both those guys provide, reliability on special teams. But also, I mean, Abdullah is a kind of a guy that right now is shown more and more prowess as a rotational player. Like the group. Definitely excited to see what that looks like, especially, as we continue to see this defense kind of change under Ryan Nielsen. Exactly how much linebacker are any of these guys playing, kind of what we were talking about earlier with coming off the edge and whatnot.
Yeah, I still think a linebacker, one of those linebackers, and I've felt this way maybe more about Devin Lloyd, could prove to be the Jags' third most effective pass rusher.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that's going to be Eric Armstead. That's what you would hope. I mean, that's what you're kind of bringing him in here for. But if it is an Armstead, I could see it being, because of the pressure packages and those type of things that Nielsen likes to employ, that it actually ends up being a linebacker that's more of that kind of guy once you get past Trayvon Walker and also Josh Hines Allen. 5 cornerbacks on this 53-man, Ev. Tyson Campbell, Ronald Darby, Jarian Jones, DeAndre Prince, Monteric Brown, You think about the nickel position maybe in relation with that. And so Christian Braswell doesn't make this 53 man. Think there was some raised eyebrows about that. But just on the surface, you talk about just true corners, okay? Not sub-packaged nickel guys, just outside corners. And Jarian can certainly play inside. This is a five that, again, shouldn't come as a surprise.
No, I don't think so. I think maybe there was a conversation or two about I don't know. Maybe Braswell was in the mix. I do think that he looked like he could at least make an NFL roster of some kind. But no, these are the five for sure. Campbell and Darby up top. I think that's that was always a given. There was never any questions. Obviously, Prince was kind of maybe that guy that I thought Braswell could get in for, but he's had a he had a really great camp. He looked solid in preseason, and Monteric Brown is a guy that they know very well at this point. Again, useful on special teams, but also fairly reliable. He even had some games last year where he had to play a lot of snaps due to Tyson Campbell's injuries and other issues. So no, I like the group, and I'll be interested to see exactly who's kind of hopping into most behind Darby and Campbell, if it's going to be Jarian Jones or they'll go for the guy with more experience like Monteric Brown. But it's not a surprising five.
Yeah, Christian Braswell, I think, felt the squeeze between the corner and safety positions.
Yeah,
because you got Darnell Savage working at the nickel as a safety. You've got Jarian Jones as a corner working at the nickel. You also have Antonio Johnson that can work at the nickel position from the safety spot. So between those three guys coming from two different spots, I think Braswell felt the squeeze. He's also a guy that, when you think about special teams, maybe not as critical to those units as some other guys. So very good camp, I thought, for Christian Braswell. That's not the point here. Ultimately, it's all about the numbers, as we've heard ad nauseum. And with Jarian Jones able to play in there and perhaps being the big picture solution actually at the nickel to go along with Savage, and then also Antonio Johnson, guys like that, it was getting tight there for a spot here in the secondary. And then we'll talk about the safeties, because Andre Cisco, Darnell Savage, Daniel Thomas, special teams again, Antonio Johnson. And then also you have to take into account with Andrew Wingard starting the season off on injured reserve, that probably opened a spot. In some ways, it didn't help Christian Braswell that Wingard was on IR, but it may have very well helped a guy like Daniel Thomas.
Yeah, if I'm Daniel Thomas, I will say it's like, sweet, I made the roster. But you have Wingard coming off IR and Tashawn Gipson's coming back from suspension.
Yeah.
So, I mean, here in, about halfway through the season, things are going to shake up probably pretty dramatically in that safety group. I would have to guess that Daniel Thomas is kind of the first head to be cut there. But still, I like Daniel Thomas. I don't want him to be, it's not like that. It's just, that is going to be something to watch because, you've got two guys coming back after extended, I guess, stays away from the team. But Cisco and Savage are, super obvious, super happy to have those guys, and Antonio Johnson, of course, as well. That is an interesting point you made about Braswell, with the fact that Johnson and Savage both are able to play the nickel if need be. Definitely. It's a great thing for the Jaguars in terms of efficiency, and when you're trying to, maybe use some extra roster spots on other positions, like we mentioned with the D line or something like that. But tough for Braswell. But those four, I think, as things stand right now, are totally fine. And then, when Wingard and Gipson comes back, I would have to imagine both of them get back into the 53 man. I mean, why would you really be keeping them around otherwise? Or why would you sign Gipson, right? But still, it's going to be something interesting to watch.
Yeah, Wingard goes back to special teams too with him,
Yeah, for
obviously. Sure. And, Braswell, I think, is a guy you'd love to get to your practice squad, if you can do that. And, I've said it all along. I said it the entire preseason. I think some of these guys are going to get picked up. by other teams,
Yeah.
whether it be the 53 man or certainly their practice squads, guys like Braswell, even a Trey Flowers, Terrell Edmonds at the safety
Yeah.
position, even Amani Arroyo, I thought had done some nice things during camp at the corner spot. So some quality players, I think, that are on the market now that spent the preseason with the Jags. Specialists, no surprises here. Cam Little is the kicker. Logan Cook, the punter. The long snapper is the Pro Bowler, Ross Matisick. And so you talked about it a little bit too. We did. When Wingard comes back, when even Keelan Robinson comes back, just in terms of special teams roles, not so much specialists like these guys, but there's still only so many slots for guys that are going to maybe be more special teams oriented than they are, say, positionally. So that's something else you got to keep an eye on, whether it's offensive skill positions that Keelan Robinson might impact when he's eligible to return. And then certainly, as we talked about, who you did, Gipson coming off the suspension and then Dewey coming back from the injury.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot, that it's all very fluid, that's why we made that joke about the initial roster too, right? I mean, there's not just stuff that's going to be happening over the next, 24 hours, the next week that, we could see some shifting around here. But also, yeah, when those suits come back, all that different stuff is very, very, I don't know, it's not finished,
To be determined. Yeah.
yeah, it's undetermined.
TBD.
Uh, yeah, but no, I think overall, I'm not surprised with anything that I'm seeing. I think
Roster quality, where would you put this compared to recent years?
I would say I feel a lot better about this than I did. What's funny is that last year I thought our roster might have been just as good as this, at least at the beginning of the year. I don't know. Eric Armstead, there's a couple different names that are in this group now that Brian Thomas Jr. that, elevate things. But there are also, I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. for Calvin Ridley, right? So stuff. So I'd probably give it we'll say a 7.5 out of 10. I think this is a playoff team. I think this is a playoff roster. I think this is one of the better rosters in the NFL. I think there's still some areas of concern, kind of the areas we've been talking about it at length, but I would say a 7.5 compared to and last year would have been maybe a 7. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I think Armstead, helped sort of ease some of the issues you might have had with Ridley moving on. But if that didn't, the camp that Brian Thomas Jr. had to have.
Yeah.
I think Gabe Davis is a nice fit in terms of that. Mitch Morse, I think you upgraded at center. And maybe the biggest upgrade that you hope you don't really find out about is behind Trevor Lawrence. Because if you have another situation like you had a year ago, you got to feel better about putting Mac Jones in there, going all in with your backup, which was something you didn't really want to do apparently a year ago. So, hey, a lot of stuff to consider. We're going to keep considering it right here on No Sleep Teal. If you haven't subscribed to our channel as of yet, we certainly hope you'll hit that subscribe button right now. Hit that notification bell while you're at it. That way you are alerted to all of our content as it drops here on the channel. If you don't mind, a thumbs up, a like would help us out tremendously as well. Ev, always great stuff. Look forward to doing it again soon.
Yeah, no, we'll be back next week. And then, after that, it'll probably be
real.
what? Yeah, I know. Oh man, I'm so excited. I cannot wait for the season to get started. And, I can't wait to keep recording episodes, as we follow along.
Absolutely. Should be a lot of fun. We thank you again for joining us. For Evan Reier, I'm Travis Reier. Thanks again. Until next time. So long, everybody.